Need your daily fix on mixed martial arts?
We're going to kind of recap Bellator 155.
From UFC 198.
Who's who?
Kind of a controversial decision.
And who's not?
I couldn't figure out why, and then it hit me.
Well, don't you fret, because Golden State Media Concepts got you covered. Get your daily dose of MMA podcast. Everything from the UFC, Bellator Fighting Championships, Extreme Cage Fighting, Invicta Fighting Championships, and so much more. Join us as we talk about some of the biggest names in mixed martial arts. We've got you covered here on Golden State Media Concepts MMA Podcast.
Alright, thank you for tuning in to the GSMC MMA podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Pawan, and tonight we're talking about UFC Fight Night 170. This is happening this Saturday, March 14th. Main event, Charles Oliveira versus Kevin Lee, followed up with Damion Maia versus Gilbert Burns, and a star-studded lineup on the undercard with the likes of Johnny Walker. I'll definitely get into all of that, but we'll start off with the main event. Kevin Lee versus Charles Oliveira, very interesting fight. We'll go through a little bit of housekeeping. Kevin Lee, with a record of 18-5, 27 years of age, standing at 5 foot 9 inches tall, and 77-inch reach. Charles Oliveira, on the other hand, a 28-8 record, 30 years of age, standing at 5 foot 10 inches tall, with a shorter 74-inch reach. So going through a few of their accolades, Kevin Lee is ranked at number 8, coming off of a tremendous first-round knockout victory. Charles Oliveira is ranked at 13, coming off of a 6-fight win streak. And even more amazing than that, out of those 6-fight wins, 5 of them have been Fight of the Night bonuses for him. Charles Oliveira also has the most submission wins in the UFC, 13 submission wins, a total of 18 in his career, but 13 of them being in the UFC. Oliveira, definitely a dangerous opponent on the ground. Good striking, but his ground game is definitely where he's the most dangerous. Also, with his 30 years of age, he seems to kind of be getting to that point where his body and his mind are leveling off, where not only is he physically impressive, but mentally he's very impressive as well. At the peak of his career right now, probably in his prime. Kevin Lee, on the other hand, coming off of a first round high kick knockout victory against Gregor Gillespie, putting Gillespie completely out cold. It was a right hand followed up with a left high kick. If you did not see that fight, put Gillespie completely out cold. Hit him with one hammer fist. Didn't really need to do that, but it is what it is. Is that left high kick which completely put him out cold. Gillespie wasn't even able to stand up and be there for the official announcement by Bruce Buffer. Biggest change in Kevin Lee's game, I think, has come from his changing camp and coaching. He's now working at the TriStar gym under Coach Firas Zahabi. For any of you who don't know Firas Zahabi or the TriStar gym, that is up in Montreal, the gym and coach of legendary fighter Georges St. Pierre. I'm sure everyone knows him, but Kevin Lee has had a few losses. All of his losses have been to top level competition. 2 losses to Ally Quinta, first fight and a rematch, unanimous decision loss. Moved up to welterweight, had a loss against Rafael dos Anjos, a submission loss there. And in 2017, he fought for the interim lightweight championship against Tony Ferguson, who we all know is an absolute beast. Will be fighting Khabib Nurmagomedov for the title in the upcoming weeks. Lost to him via triangle choke back in 2017. Charles Oliveira, great submission artist. Like I said, Kevin Lee, also very good with submissions. Once he gets on your back, it's very hard for him very hard for opponents to get him off, or just hold him off until he gets a submission. I believe that for us, the hobby change has been tremendously good with him. We'll see how it goes. This is his second fight with him. But as far as how I see this fight going, I see Kevin Lee coming out with a wide stance like he did against Gregor Gillespie, standing very low with his knees bent, head kind of forward. Not sure if he's baiting out punches from Gregor Gillespie, but just standing there ready to go and ready to stop takedowns. That's what the low stance and wide legs are doing for him. Easy for him to sprawl, easy for him to pull his legs back if Charles Oliveira shoots for a takedown. Charles Oliveira, on the other hand, does get hurt to the body quite easily, and Kevin Lee loves to kick to the body. So I see that being a big part of the game plan, to target Charles Oliveira's body, especially since Kevin Lee does have the reach advantage both in his legs and his arms, I believe. In his arms for sure. He'll be targeting the body with kicks, which could set up a later round high kick, or even if he's able to hurt Oliveira with a body shot, he could follow it up with ground and pound, or just strikes against the fence and finish him off there. Charles Oliveira, on the other hand, does get a lot better in the later part of fights, so if he is able to weather the storm in the first few rounds, he could definitely pick it up in the later half of the fight. It's definitely a pick'em fight. It's no clear winner, but no clear advantage for either one to say this person is more likely to win by a huge margin. But I definitely do see Kevin Lee winning, especially on the way he's been fighting, the way he's been talking. He's trying to get a few fights under his belt so he can work his way back up to a title shot. Oliveira, not any walkover, not an easy target. Like I said, 6-fight win streak. It's a pick'em fight. Could go either way. If it gets into later rounds, Charles Oliveira will do a lot better. But also, in the later rounds, Kevin Lee will be sweatier, be slipperier. So it might be a little bit harder to take down. Definitely going to be harder to hold down and get into submission positions. Another thing with this fight, if you don't know what's happening in Brazil with the COVID-19 coronavirus, there's no gatherings of over 100 people allowed, which means there will be no crowd. It will be 16,000 empty seats in the stadium. I'm going to talk more about that later, but that's very interesting. I can't wait to see what the walkouts are like and how that affects the fighters, how it affects a lot of things in this fight. But with that being said, we will move on to Damion Maia and Gilbert Burns after a small commercial break. Please stay tuned. Thank you.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Alright, welcome back. We just predicted the Fight Night 170 main event of Charles Oliveira versus Kevin Lee. So we'll be moving on to the co-main event, a welterweight fight of Damion Maia versus Gilbert Burns. Starting off with some more housekeeping for both fighters. We'll start off with Damion Maia at 42 years of age, 9 years older than his opponent, getting up there in age, but a veteran nonetheless, with a record of 28-9, 6 foot 1 inch height, and 72 inch reach. Gilbert Burns, on the other hand, 17-3 is his record. 33 years of age, standing at 5 foot 10 inches, and a 71-inch reach. So not too much of a difference with their height and reach. Mainly the difference comes in age. Like I said, a 9-year age difference, almost 10 years apart. Damion Maia definitely getting up there in age. Could be a factor, but it's definitely something we'll see. We haven't seen Damion Maia's age really show too bad. But like I was saying, Damion Maia is coming off a tremendous 3-fight win streak. His last fight being against another accomplished wrestler, Ben Askren, which was a fight of the night for that card. Very close fight. Damion Maia pretty much edging it out if it did go to points, but did get a stoppage, a rear naked choke in the 5th round, putting Ben Askren to sleep. Gilbert Burns, on the other hand, is on a 4-fight win streak, but this is only his 2nd fight at welterweight. I definitely do believe he's found a lot more success with welterweight, less cardio issues, and he's definitely very physically strong and can hang with a little bit bigger guys. Definitely stronger on the feet, definitely better, at least more powerful striking than Damion Maia, but does slow down in the later rounds. Doesn't really gas out, but slows down. She's ranked at number 12 in the welterweight ranking. Damion Maia ranked at number 5, so this will definitely have a little shake-up in the ranking, especially if Gilbert Burns is able to take the victory. So with Damion Maia, he's had a few losses, having 3 losses back-to-back against amazing competition. He fought Tyron Woodley for the welterweight championship, lost that fight, followed up with a fight against Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman. 3 very accomplished wrestlers back-to-back. Lost all 3, but there's definitely no shame in losing to competition that good. Compared to Gilbert Burns, who hasn't fought anyone to the esteem of Damion Maia or Damion Maia's opposition. So with this fight, how do I think it's going to go? This is, again, just like that first fight, should be a very close fight. I do believe I have Damion Maia winning this fight, even though the odds makers have Gilbert Burns a 2-1 favorite. Gilbert Burns, like I was saying, very physically strong, definitely does have knockout power, and probably will be going for a knockout victory early in the fight, which could tire him out for the later rounds, especially with his grappling if Damion Maia gets him down. But Damion Maia, on the other hand, I do believe he will get Gilbert Burns down and will finish the fight or edge out a victory in 5-round decision. Gilbert Burns, like I said, going for an early knockout will probably find himself in a bad position, susceptible to a takedown from Damion Maia. Damion Maia capitalizing, taking a single leg, double leg. However, he needs to get the fight to the ground, and that's when the fight will really start. But that could always be wrong. I thought Colby Covington versus Kamaru Usman was going to be a high-level wrestling match, especially with them being such good wrestlers, but that ended up being a 5-round stand-and-bang type of fight. I don't believe there were any takedown attempts in that fight. Maybe when Colby was hurt, I can't remember too well. But with this fight, I don't see it being on the feet for too long, especially for Damion Maia. He's definitely going to be looking for that takedown and getting it to the ground into a grappling match. Damion Maia is definitely an absolute beast on the ground. He'll, in any way he can submit you, he will ground and pound you. He'll get on your back and drop elbows from there. So, like I said, he has a lot more ways to win on the ground. Gilbert Burns, again, a very good grappler, but he's definitely going to want to try to keep this fight standing, especially in the earlier rounds, to get an early round knockout, just using his power. But that could be a big issue if he's not able to land, if Damion Maia is able to avoid taking damage and let Gilbert Burns tire himself out. Gilbert Burns has had a little bit of cardio issues later in his fight, but ever since he's been up at welterweight, it doesn't seem like he has too bad of a cardio issue. Not really an issue, but definitely slows down. Like I said, 5th ranked versus 12th ranked. So winner of this fight will definitely be moving up, but not a title shot anywhere in the near future for these guys. They'll definitely need a few more fights before shooting for a title shot, especially for Damion Maia. It'd be another one. And he's already lost to Kamaru Usman, so don't see that happening. He does have a win over not Ben Askren, but Jorge Masvidal. Split decision victory, and I don't know how Masvidal is doing with his BMF title, if he's willing to put it on the line. He said he was for a small fee or a bet. I don't think he'll be doing that against Damion Maia or Gilbert Burns. He's definitely going to be looking for a big name. So either one of these guys, if they win, they'll definitely have to get a few other wins under their belt, even with both of them having a good little win streak, 3 fights and 4 fight win streak under their belt. Gilbert Burns is up and coming. If he can get this win over Damion Maia, he's definitely going to shoot up in the rankings, definitely going to work his way up to being a name that should be a contender, getting 1, maybe 2 other fights. Like I said, he's 2-1 favorite, which surprised me to say the least. But like I said, I definitely have Damion Maia edging out a 5-round hard-fought victory on the ground. Every round is going to start standing up. We'll see how Gilbert Burns' power lasts throughout the later rounds. But as long as Gilbert Burns is throwing very powerful strikes and getting out of position, Damion Maia is going to be capitalizing, getting this fight to the ground and trying to finish it with submissions, with strikes, and just putting a pace on Gilbert Burns. Damion Maia is one of those weird fighters who kind of looks tired, but is always working. With that being said, we will move on to talking about a few other fights on the undercard. We have Damir Hadzovic, I hope I did not butcher that name too bad, versus Renato Moicano. Terrible with these names. Moicano, I hope I didn't butcher that one either, but we'll be right back after these short little break.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Alright, we just recapped the co-main event of UFC Fight Night 170, Damion Maia versus Gilbert Burns, where I predicted Damion Maia will get a hard-fought decision victory over Gilbert Burns. But now we'll move on to the fight before that, the last fight on the other card, Renato Moicano versus Damir Hadzovic. I believe I got their names right this time. But again, we'll start off with a little bit of housekeeping for both fighters. Damir, 13-5, 33 years of age, standing at 5'11" tall with a 70-inch reach. Renato not too far off at 13-3-1, 30 years old, the same height at 5'11", and 2 inches longer reach at 72 inches. So both these fighters are very exciting fighters, neither one of them ranked, but both of them coming off of loss or losses, so this is definitely a comeback fight for both of them. Damir coming off of a decision loss, and not too bad of a fight, but Renato, on the other hand, coming off of 2 TKO losses to the Korean Zombie and Jose Aldo, and that is a very interesting talking point because we know it wasn't a clean knockout loss, but even with TKOs, I really wonder how much damage, permanent damage, that has done to Renato's chin. If you know of Chuck Liddell, you know he had a granite chin in the beginning of his career, and near the ending, it seemed like he couldn't take a punch. Definitely probably fought too far late into his career, especially with his age. But like I said, that's definitely one thing to worry about, is the accumulation of damage on his chin. Will he be able to take a punch from Damir? Also, he's coming off of those 2 losses. A third loss in his UFC career is not going to be good. Seen a lot of fighters get cut after 3 losses, and that very much could be the outcome for Renato. So he's fighting for his career possibly with this fight. Damir, again, coming off a loss, so he's definitely fighting to get a win. In his last fight, he did mention he had a torn meniscus, I believe 3 weeks going into that fight, took the fight anyway. So seeing him come out completely healthy, definitely will see where he is in his mindset, knowing he does have a daughter now. Between his 2 fights, he became a father for the first time, having a daughter, so I'm sure that'll be a huge motivator for him, trying to prove everyone wrong, especially coming off of a loss, having a daughter, having something he's willing to fight for. We'll see how he comes out. But the difference, I believe, in this fight will be the low kicks Renato will be landing. He'll absolutely likes to chew up the legs and then do great with his boxing, great with his Muay Thai. Definitely does have a slight advantage in his striking compared to Damir. Damir likes to throw a lot of spinning attacks, which could get very difficult for him if Renato does accumulate that damage on his legs. If he could take the pop out of Damir's punches, slow down his spinning attacks, kind of see them coming a lot more. And that, like I said, is probably what I see being the difference maker in this fight. Renato building up a lot of leg kick damage, and then finishing up with the hands. I don't see either one of these guys getting a knockout unless, again, Damir gets some sort of spinning attack off and completely puts Renato out, or hurts him, and gets the 3rd TKO loss for Renato there. Like I said, this is a pick'em fight. Renato, not the best defense with his stand-up, looks very hittable at times, and doesn't have that one-punch knockout power. He will accumulate a lot of damage, not just with the leg kicks like I was saying, but with his hands in the stand-up. He could definitely put it on Damir, keep landing, keep his volume up, and get a late round, maybe 3rd round stoppage, TKO stoppage, if he's able to accumulate that damage on Damir. Damir, again, another stand-up fighter, great Muay Thai, can do a lot on his stand-up, can definitely win this fight. Again, another pick'em fight, nothing clear-cut on this card at all, really. But, like I said, Renato definitely will be the better of the fighters, especially when it comes to the kicks. Also, he's training at American Top Team, which, of course, is an absolute amazing gym, has a few champions under their belt. Amanda Nunes, former interim champion, Colby Covington. Renato definitely has a lot of good sparring partners up there. Damir, I'm not too sure where he is training right now, but I definitely do have Renato winning. Neither one of these guys are ranked. Neither one of these guys will be shooting up to a contender spot or anything near there. They'll definitely need a few fights under their belt, especially in such a stacked division like the lightweight division. Maybe the winner will call out one of the winners or even the loser of the main card fight. But these guys definitely need to work their way up. Probably will get in the top 15 ranking after this fight. Maybe Damir, Renato with those last two losses, being so decisive and being so early, 1st round TKO and 2nd round TKO, I don't see moving up that quickly. But a win here will definitely do him good, to put him on the right path to success. Damir Hadzovic, same thing, on a path to success. Being a father for the first time, that could be the fire he needs to get going. But like I said, I have Renato winning. with the leg kicks, also with that 2-inch reach, not much, but with such a close fight, that could be the one that makes the difference. With that being said, we'll move on and do another short little break, and when we're back, we're going to be talking about Johnny Walker versus Nikita Krylov. I believe I got those names right. Johnny Walker, for sure I got right. But yeah, we will move on to those right after this. Stay tuned.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we are back. We just recapped the Renato Moicano versus Damir Hadzovic fight in the lightweight division, the last fight on the undercard, and now we're going to move on to the light heavyweight fight with Johnny Walker versus Nikita Krylov. We'll start off with information about them again, starting off with Johnny Walker, 17-4 in his career, 27 years of age, 6'5" tall with a 82-inch reach. Nikita Krylov, 25-7, has a few more fights than Johnny Walker, just a year older at 28 years of age, 2 inches shorter at 6'3", and with a 77.5-inch reach. Quite a big reach advantage for Johnny Walker. Both of these guys ranked, Nikita at 12 in the light heavyweight division, Johnny Walker ranked at 10. Nikita is coming off of a split decision close fought loss to Glover Teixeira, and has a knockout loss against Jan Blachowicz, who is in talks of getting a fight with the champion of the light heavyweight division, John Jones. Johnny Walker, on the other hand, is also coming off of a quick TKO loss against Corey Anderson, where I definitely thought he was going to win that fight. He was also in the talks of getting a fight with John Jones, probably very premature for his career, but looked unstoppable. He's very unique with his striking, a lot of weird feints and then explosive movements, jumping knees, flying knees, spinning attacks, and he's used to getting early knockouts, so that Corey Anderson loss is definitely was an ego check for him, where he did fire his trainer and move to Firas Zahabi. Like I mentioned before, Firas Zahabi in the TriStar gym, the coaches of the great George St. Pierre. That's going to be interesting to see how Firas Zahabi mentors Johnny Walker and his style. I do see him being very similar. I don't think there's too much he's going to change as far as his feints and his style goes, but I feel like he will be a lot more careful this time around, not just going for an early round stoppage, taking his time, keeping those feints there, and trying to find openings without overextending or without really making too many mistakes. Nikita Krylov, on the other hand, looking for a statement win right now. Very strong fighter, very power-based fighter, is a finisher. He could definitely finish Johnny Walker. This is one of the closest fights on the card. As much as Johnny Walker does have a hype train around him, Skill-wise, he's definitely up there, but he's not anything that can't be taken out, as Corey Anderson showed. Comeback fight for both of these fighters. It will most likely be a stand-up fight in the Muay Thai kickboxing range. And with that, Johnny Walker is definitely going to have an advantage with his reach and his height compared to Kroylov. But that is how it seems like it's going to go. I have Johnny Walker winning this fight by decision or late stoppage. Most of his fights have been, like I said, early knockouts, win or loss, and that's definitely going to play a part in his game plan and how he's able to take shots moving forward. I don't think he has a problem with his chin at all, even against that TKO loss against Corey Anderson that he's coming off of. He was still standing at the end of the fight. He was dazed, he was confused, but he wasn't knocked out. Nikita Kroylov, again, 25-7, not too many bad losses on his career, but does have that powerful shot that could put Johnny Walker out. I feel like this is going to be a very, very exciting fight to watch. The stand-up kickboxing fight, a lot of damage going both ways. I'd like to see how Johnny Walker is going to change his style with Firas Zabi, if he's going to keep that forward pressure like he normally does, looking for that knockout, looking for that big flying knee, looking for that spinning back fist, or if he's going to be a lot more calm and relaxed, if he's going to be, taking his time, using his feints, and backing up a bit more, looking for openings to use his power, to use his unique strikes. But in my prediction, I definitely do see Johnny Walker winning this fight, like I said, late round stoppage. Most likely to finish either way, actually, whether it's a win for Kroylov or Walker, it will most likely be a finish. I definitely want to see this fight go on for a while, not a war per se, but definitely do want to see these guys go at it, stand bang for a while, just to see where both of these guys are at, especially in the light heavyweight division now. Before it seemed kind of stagnant with John Jones completely washing everyone in the division. But with his last few fights, he's looked a lot more human, to say the least. Could have gone either way with his last fight against Dominic Reyes. And Johnny Walker definitely is trying to work his way back up there. Nikita Krylov, again, a young guy, even though he does have a lot of fights under his belt. We'll see how this really goes. I believe Nikita did ask to be released from the UFC before coming back, which is very strange, but shows how strong he is mentally. He understood he needed a little bit more experience, took his time away from the UFC, got a few fights under his belt, then came back. He is 1-2 in his return to the UFC, but his two losses against great competition, Jan Blachowicz, who again is in talks to fight John Jones for the title. So again, no shame in losing to someone like that. Johnny Walker, again, losing to Corey Anderson, another great top 5 fighter with a lot of threat in his wrestling. That's where Kroylov, I feel like, will have his disadvantages exploited. Johnny Walker will not fear a takedown attempt from Kroylov, and therefore he's going to be a lot more confident in his striking. Probably keeping that forward pressure, probably moving forward with a lot of feints, and ending this fight with some sort of unique attack, spinning attack, flying knee, Superman punch even. A lot of ways for Johnny Walker to finish his fight, and a lot of chances for Kroylov to counter those, whether it's a right hand, a left hand, or a kick. He can definitely finish Johnny Walker at any point in the fight, damage him, hurt him, finish him up with more strikes, whether it be ground and pound or up against the fence, like the Corey Anderson loss. But overall, definitely do see Johnny Walker taking the victory here. With that being said, we will be moving on to the final fight, or the first fight on the undercard, and a little bit more about MMA news, especially with the coronavirus and how that will impact the rest of the card. So we'll take a small break, Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Alright, and we are back. We just talked about the second fight on the undercard in the light heavyweight division, Johnny Walker versus Nikita Krylov. Like I said, I believe I have Johnny Walker winning that fight. A Muay Thai and kickboxing style fight, much like the fight we're talking about now. The first fight on the undercard with Francisco Trinaldo versus John Makdessi. So Francisco Trinaldo definitely getting up there in age at 41 years old, but doesn't seem to be slowing down. Been in the UFC since his 8th fight in mixed martial arts and has been sticking around ever since. But yes, he is 5'9" tall with a 70-inch reach, 13-1 kickboxing record, and a 24-7 mixed martial arts record. John Makdessi, on the other hand, 34, the younger fighter, 5'8" tall, and a 68-inch reach with a mixed martial arts record of 17-6. So these guys are coming off of wins moving forward. John Makdessi, a decision win versus Bobby Green. Francisco Trinaldo with a decision win versus Bobby Green, and John Makdessi on a 3-fight win streak. So definitely has the momentum going for him. Also has one fight of the night bonus in his last 3 fights. So definitely does have a strong momentum on his side. With that being said, both of these guys are very similar fighters. Both of these guys are stand and bang fighters. I don't see the fight going any other way. But both of these guys seem to fight at a similar level. They'll pick it up if they need to. They'll slow it down if they can. And with the fighting each other, I feel like that is going to be a huge factor. As far as big differences, only big difference I see is in the power. Francisco Trinaldo definitely has the advantage in power. Besides that, like I said, very similar fighters, stand-up fighters, great spinning attacks for both these guys. John Makdessi liking to finish up his striking with low kicks. That could be an issue for Francisco. If John is able to use those low kicks and damage Francisco's leg, take that power away from him, even up the playing field in that manner, he definitely has what it takes to finish this fight. But Francisco is the favorite for this fight, and also who I have winning this fight. With such a close fight, like I said, not much separating these guys as far as their level at what they fight. So whoever takes the center of the octagon in the first fight and is able to dictate the pace, is able to take the center and just control the octagon, is the one who is going to be the victor. So the first round is going to be a very decisive round. Is going to be very telling for how this fight is going to go. Besides that, Francisco Trinaldo, 2-inch reach advantage, that'll help him out. A 1-inch height advantage, that'll help him out. He's going to be punching down. He's going to be punching from a lot further. Great kickboxing background to support his striking. John Makdessi, again, great striker. Both of these guys have trouble backing up, but I believe Makdessi does a lot worse moving back. So if Francisco can take the octagon, the center of the octagon in the beginning of the fight and start pushing John Makdessi back, get him against the cage, he's going to have a lot of opportunities to hurt John Makdessi. I don't see either one of these guys getting finished. They're both very durable fighters. Believe Francisco Trinaldo does have one bad loss, knockout loss, but Neither one of them has shown any suspect chin, and both of them great durable fighters. I think this is going to be an all-out 3-round war. Very close-fought fight. Like I said, I believe Francisco will take this fight on points at the end due to the slight advantages he has in power, in height, and in reach. Other than that, these guys are so similar, it's really, really difficult to see this fight being decisive for either fighter. Makdessi, if he's able to push the pace, if he's able to get the center of the octagon, he'll also be able to open up on Francisco. Francisco not having the best defense moving backwards either. Biggest difference is the power, is the small advantages physically. Besides that, both these guys are great stand-up fighters. With spinning attacks too, a lot of spinning attack and unique attacking fighters on this card in general. We could see some fireworks with some spinning attacks, but definitely expect a war with these guys. They're both not afraid to get their hands dirty, both not afraid to take a punch, both definitely not afraid to give a punch. Only big advantage I see for John Makdessi is if he's able to end his combos with good low kicks, and then follow that up over and over again with a high kick or a kick to the body, and give Francisco a lot of damage in that way and try to finish him there. But like I said, this is definitely going to be one of the fights to watch if you do like that stand and bang style of fight. A lot of fireworks, a lot of punches, high volume. But either way this fight goes, it does not seem like it will be a very decisive fight. Like I said, either way, back and forth fight. All really does depend on that first round. I believe Francisco will start off a lot better, move forward, start pushing John Makdessi back, letting his hands go, not letting John Makdessi get into a position to fire back, or at least fire back anything of substance. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this fight. It's definitely going to be probably one of the most exciting fights because of their fight style, because of the level they fight to. Definitely one I'm definitely going to be tuning in for. Only issue Francisco could be having is with his age. If his age is catching up to him, will he start slowing down in the later rounds? Will his reflexes start giving out? Will his speed start giving out? Hasn't been the issue so far, but age is that weird thing. It can catch up with you in one day. With all that being said, that is the recap of the main card. We will be moving on to a lot of MMA news, mainly how this entire card is going to go with the coronavirus. So to hear more about that, please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Alright, and we are back. We just recapped the entire card, Fight Night 170, happening this Saturday, March 14th. And now we'll move on to some MMA news, starting off with the coronavirus in Brazil affecting the fight card. So like I said earlier in this in this podcast, there will be no one attending this fight. 16,000 seats completely empty. Due to the coronavirus, the Brazilian government has no longer allowed any gatherings over 100 people to prevent the spread of the virus. It seems like that's something that we're going to have for a next few fights, not mattering where they are. And that's very interesting. It's going to change a lot of things. Like I said, the number one thing I'm waiting to see is how the walkouts will be. Normally walkouts are exciting. You have the music playing, the crowd getting excited. You get the cheers, you get the boos, you get the crowd singing along. Especially if it's an English crowd singing Sweet Caroline, you always get that. But without any of that, how will the entrances alone be? Are they going to be the exact same? Are we going to have the fighters having the music coming out to an empty stadium? And we're probably not going to have the security guards there to stop any of the fans from getting involved, simply because there is no fans to be involved in the first place. So it'll probably be the fighters and their team. I'm not even sure if there will be that extravagant of a walkout, or if it'll be just a quick, let's get to it and let's start fighting. With that, no crowd, how is that going to affect the fight in itself? How is that going to affect the fighters mentally? It's going to be a lot more like how they spar in the gym. They can hear their coaches a lot better. They can hear their opponents' coaches a lot better. They're going to hear all of that instructions. Is that going to work to the advantage of some fighters if they have a better team behind them, if they have a coach that knows exactly what to say, what should be done? As far as the audience at home, are we going to hear the coaches? Are we going to hear the punches, the kicks, the breathing of the fighters a lot better without the noise of the crowd getting involved? A lot of things will be changing, and this is kind of going to set the tone for any other cards that do not have an audience for them. Also, how is that going to affect the mentality of the fighters? Is it going to be that engaging? After the fight, are there going to be any celebrations, or is it just going to be a respectful ending, much like a sparring match, like I said before? Also, the biggest issue I believe it's going to be is with the judging. How is the judging going to change without any crowd interactions? With judging, a lot of it can be swayed with the crowd. If the crowd is going crazy for certain moments, if the crowd is booing, how is that going to change up the scoring for the fights? Is it going to be a lot better scoring, a lot more indecisive scoring, or is it going to be a lot more get to the point, we know what we're watching type of scoring? And that should probably change the way the fighters fight. I don't believe they're going to be trying to do something exciting, especially for someone like Johnny Walker, who loves to hear the crowd go crazy when he does his unique strikes, his jumping flying knees, his spinning back fists, his Superman punches. Is he going to be a lot more focused on the fight, listening to Faraz Zahabi a lot better? Lastly, how is that going to affect the refereeing of the fight? A lot of times we see the referees get involved. In UFC 248, we saw with the Yoel Romero versus Adesanya fight, the crowd started to boo a lot because they weren't engaging in a brawl. They weren't going all out. They were a lot more selective with their shots. They were playing a lot higher level of chess in there. And with that happening, referee, I believe it was Mark Goddard, stepped in and told them, hey, you guys have to fight. I believe the words he chose to say was, give the referee something to score. Are we going to hear any of that without a crowd? Is it going to affect the refereeing for a fight like Damion Maia versus Gilbert Burns, which could be a long, drawn-out fight on the ground? Are we going to not see a stand-up, even if it is a lot of time being stalled on the ground? Just having no crowd is a game changer in so many different ways. Like I said, it's going to change the walkout. It's going to change the way we listen to it at home. It's going to change the way the fighters hear their coaches. It's going to change the mentality of the fighters. It's going to change the mentality of the judges. And lastly, it's going to change the mentality of the referee. So all that put together, this could be a make or break for the next few cards that may need to have no audience. This again is not just for MMA. Luckily, we are still going to get to see the fight, see the entire card, unlike in the NBA and NHL and I'm not sure if any other sports league have canceled the rest of their season due to some of their athletes getting infected with the coronavirus. Luckily, I don't believe we've had an issue with that. I know Yang Wei Li had to change her training camp from China to Thailand, I believe, to Saudi Arabia, to America. She won her fight against Yana Jędrzejczyk, but that definitely affected her. Luckily, she did not get infected. But how is this coronavirus epidemic going to affect mixed martial arts in general? Luckily, we do have smaller rosters with mixed martial arts, so if one fighter gets infected, it's much less likely that the rest of the roster is going to get it, and a huge portion, especially like a whole season like the NBA, NHL, and any other leagues that have had to cancel their whole entire season, or at least postpone it until further notice, is going to be. With that being said, I can't wait to see how that goes. Moving on, let's talk about the Khabib versus Tony Ferguson fight coming up, because that's on everyone's mind. And with this coronavirus, that's another concern. This is the 5th time that fight is being made. The last thing we want to see is for this fight to get canceled for some other outside reasons besides injuries. Of course, it's always a worry with Tony Ferguson and his extreme style of training. I saw a video of him suspended by the hips, by a bungee cord, or if it was just an elastic band, one of the workout elastic bands, if you know what I'm talking about, attached to his hip, just suspended and spinning on his head, spinning around, more like a gymnastics athlete than a mixed martial artist. And then all of a sudden the band snapped and he fell down, and that could have ended horribly. He could have easily landed on a weird way on his neck, on one of his joints, popped his elbow, his knees. So much can go wrong with the way Tony Ferguson trains, but it works for him, so you can't tell him not to do it. Especially with him saying he doesn't do much sparring. He says he's going to start sparring again for this fight against Khabib Nurmagomedov. But literally, until that fight happens, you have no idea if that fight's going to happen. Luckily, we do have a few people who are willing to step in. Conor McGregor, one of them, probably going to be the number one pick for the UFC just because of the fan base he has. It's a lot more eyes on the sport when Conor McGregor is fighting. But we also have Justin Gaethje willing to step in. I believe Dustin Poirier is ready to step in at any time. I'd like to see Justin Gaethje get that opportunity before Khabib or Dustin, just because both of them have had, not Khabib and Dustin, but Conor and Dustin, because both of them have already had that opportunity. To see Justin in there, especially off his last few victories, he's been on a roll. Seems like he's ready. They are under the same management, so that's very well a possibility. But that is very interesting. Lastly, we'll talk about Jon Jones' upcoming fight. It's either going to be Jan Blachowicz or a rematch with Dominic Reyes, as it seems so far. Dana White has said he wants to see the Dominic Reyes rematch. After watching that fight again, I believe I had Dominic Reyes winning 3-2, but I could not complain with Jon Jones winning, especially since he did take the later rounds. But taking it round for round, I believe Dominic Reyes took that fight, and a rematch would be definitely something I want to see. Immediate rematch will make it even better. But with that, Jon Jones is so good at learning, and I don't see Dominic Reyes being able to do that to Jon Jones again. But both the Jon Jones fight coming up, whoever it is with, whether it is Jan Blachowicz or Dominic Reyes, and the Khabib versus Tony Ferguson fight, we will definitely talk more about that when we are on the brink of those fights. Until then, I will be signing off. Thank you for listening to the GSMC MMA podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you, please remember to subscribe to the show and write a really nice review. That really helps us out a lot. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, that would be very appreciated. And thank you for tuning in. Have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts MMA Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.